you're going to do it, the audit should be worth it. The problem is, audits are hard. Yet we've issued over 20,000 reports to 2,000 clients worldwide.
It's really important to protect that data from people who might want to attack or people who might want to steal and manipulate and use it against us.
Cybersecurity and compliance will no longer be a mystery. Hey everybody, welcome into our cybersecurity mission. My name is Allie Krings. Today we're sitting down with Chief Technology Officer Greg Champa. Greg, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you too.
You know, I want to dive into your past before we get into G-Web and security and application development. So, Chief Technology Officer, very, very cool title. Where did you start?
Well, I started as most people do, just as a developer on a development team doing work in a financial services company, and I knew nothing. Even though I went to college for this, I felt like I came into the job and knew nothing, but learned so much along the way and have just grown in my skill and just had opportunities to move up.
You know, that's one thing that I do hear continuously where obviously a college education, a college degree, super helpful, wonderful things to have, but especially in fields like cybersecurity, they're not necessarily the end-all be-all.
Right.
Do you feel like what the tools that you need and use today, you kind of learned and honed here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there were certain things I learned in school that were helpful, especially out of the gate, but by and large, on-the-job training. And just the fact that things in the industry move so quickly, there's so much to learn that things I would have learned years ago are somewhat relevant, but for the most part, because of how fast it's moving, there's so much to learn that you have to just constantly, try and learn new things and keep up.
If you dug out like your old textbooks or old notebooks, what do you think would be the most outdated, rule or tip that they had given you then?
I don't know if I could come up with a specific thing, but I think just the technologies themselves, the things that they were teaching us in school are things that I don't use anymore. And
Do they still exist?
They still exist, but they just are no longer the primary tool or the primary thing that companies use today.
So when it came to technology, what was it about developing that drew you in?
So I've always enjoyed building things. Even as a kid, I enjoyed that. I was, as a young kid, I was always big into Legos. I loved building those, building things out of Legos. And I would have sets, but mostly I like to create on my own. Yeah. And so that's something I always enjoyed. And then in elementary school and middle school and beyond, I enjoyed computer games. It's usually the thing that has drawn people into computers.
Totally.
And so I enjoyed that. And when I was exposed to the internet and building things with HTML, I just thought it was fascinating. The fact that I could build something and see it right there on the screen and share it with other people, I thought that was great. And I had the opportunity to see that from a young age and was very interested in it. And then in college, just took the opportunity to learn more things about that and to see what was out there. I also had the benefit of being in college during the Web 2.0 era, so I saw things like YouTube and Gmail and Facebook come to life, and that was just so fascinating, so I was able to dive into it.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, like tools that we use or apps that we use every single day now, it's crazy to think that they were just in their baby era starting to blossom. You know, every once in a while I'll go through my phone and I'll find an old screenshot from maybe a post that I'd written on somebody's Facebook wall.
Right.
And it doesn't even look the same at all.
No.
You know, do you remember the first time that you built something and you just felt so proud of that work?
Oh yeah, I think I was in 5th grade. My dad is a professor. He teaches he teaches information technology courses at a university, and at that time he was at a community college and had people working for him. And one of his interns was sitting down and showing me HTML, and so I got to build a page and include things like a picture of myself and a banner and just things we look back on as very primitive in terms of how web pages are built today. But seeing that come to life was just it was a thrill for me.
You know, and it's so exciting because there are like humble beginnings, and it's truly a career for you that has just blossomed, and you've learned so much. And here at Kirkpatrick Price, you've taken on the role as Chief Technology Officer and continued to get certifications and learn more and become kind of the best version of you to make the best version of us. So one of those certifications I wanted to ask you about is G-Web. Let's just start from the very beginning. What's G-Web?
G-Web is a certification that's issued by the SANS Institute, and SANS is an organization that provides cybersecurity training and a number of certifications across cybersecurity, both for defenders, people who are protecting their applications, for pen testers, people who are testing or attacking applications, and so certification that's focused primarily on people who are building, maintaining, and defending web applications, which is really my bread and butter, the thing that I've worked on for a number of years.
Is it something that you enjoy?
It is, yeah, it is.
So I do, because in our cybersecurity mission, our goal is really to both empower cybersecurity professionals, but we also want to educate those who might be tuning in just to learn about what we're talking about. So when you're talking about web applications, could you give us some examples so we all know what you're talking about?
Sure. So web applications are applications that run in your browser. So if you are navigating to, in our case, the Online Audit Manager, that's a web application. That's what we use with our clients and our auditors every single day. And so you're able to access it through a browser on your laptop or on your phone or any device that has access to the internet.
Now my next simple question for you, why does security in these applications even matter?
Yeah, well, more and more, people are on web applications every single day for what they do, whether it is an email application or a banking application or anything else. And these applications hold really important data to us. And it's really important to protect that data from people who might want to attack or people who might want to steal and manipulate and use it against us.
So when you get this certification, you know, and both gain the knowledge and the experience, how do you start to optimize the security within your own applications?
So there are a number of things that are important when you're talking about defending web applications. First of all, it's important to ensure that the data itself is only accessible to the people who should have access to it. And so I only want people who are associated with my company, for example, to view information about my audit in the Online Audit Manager. There's a lot of sensitive information that we ask for in an audit, and we want to make sure that's secure and protected from anyone else who might have access to it. So access control is a big part of securing web apps.
Would an example of this be, and a shout out to our team behind the scenes, hey Joel. So an example, we film all of these podcasts and then Joel and his team are editing it behind the scenes. Because it ends up on my personal Kirkpatrick Price machine, I actually needed specific access to share it outside of the company and specifically with Joel. Would that be like an example of what you're talking about?
Sure, it's any type of access control where you are defining who has permission to access this data, and you are in control of it to decide who am I letting in, and then where's this information going? Who am I sharing it with?
Is that something that you have to continuously check when you say hire a new employee or an employee leaves for one reason or another? Are you having to update this frequently?
Sure. Usually, you are building systems that have policies in place that will be there and will be applicable when new people are joining and when people are leaving, to ensure that those things are consistent across the board.
What are some other fundamental takeaways from G-Web that we could implement in our day-to-day?
Sure. So people working on web applications beyond access control, there's always the need to validate and sanitize user input. So what I mean by that, if you are going to a web application, you're entering in data. A normal person is just going to, create a post or just put put normal types of data in there, but someone who is thinking differently and looking to attack those applications may put something that is potentially malicious in and try to get the application to return something back that it shouldn't return. And
Do you mean like cross-site scripting?
Cross-site scripting is a perfect example of that.
Okay.
And so really, like fundamentally, you should never trust the data that you get from a user. You should always suspect that there's something potentially malicious in it, and it's important to make sure that it's validated and sanitized before you actually use it to execute something on the back end of your systems.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think about the emails that I receive, or even like physical letters that I get from home, and sometimes they are, phishing attempts or whatever. I didn't realize that even just within our own applications on a website, we have to be so alert as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. There are attempts happening constantly. Some of it is just malicious actors throwing things against the wall to see if it'll stick and see if they'll get anything back, and some of it is much more targeted in attempts where bad actors are trying to get into our applications.
So what are things that companies can be doing right now to help empower their organizations so that everybody's on the same page, everybody's doing the best of their ability, the right thing to prevent others from getting that information?
Yeah, I mean, training is huge.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, the industry is constantly moving and evolving. That also means that attackers are constantly moving and evolving. And so it takes a lot of effort to stay ahead or just to keep pace with the attacks that you're seeing out there. And so training is huge for both leaders and for people who are day-to-day doing the work of defending the applications that we're using.
Now, Greg, you know this, and for those of you who are tuning in, I have never once claimed to be a cybersecurity expert. So I'm going to ask some of the questions, but
Sure.
the way that you're talking about, hackers and threats, and you even gave an example of cross-site scripting being just one of the ways people can take advantage of holes out there. Why does this sound so much like pen testing?
So pen testers are, they're the good guys. The pen testers are the ones who are...
They're on our team.
They're on our team, exactly. And so they're the ones who are taking the techniques that bad actors would use, and the goal of a pen tester is to find these things before the bad actors find them. So they're using the same techniques to find potential vulnerabilities in our applications and to let us know about those so that we as defenders have the opportunity to then close those holes up to protect ourselves from bad actors who may find the same thing in the future.
One of the things that I think is really important is how we can learn from each other or even learn from our past. I'm sure that you know things today that you didn't know 10 years ago, right? But when it comes to the G-Web certification, what's something that you learned from that did bolster the security of an application that maybe we use?
Sure.
So maybe like a success story or maybe a shortcoming where you learned where we failed in that security.
Yeah, sure. I think at the time, going through the G-Web certification, it raised an awareness for me to really take this very seriously. And so coming back to the team with the new knowledge that I had, being able to then spread that to the team and emphasize why this is so important. We implemented some automated security checks after that to ensure things would be caught before they could go into production, as opposed to reacting to those things after discovering them in production. And so that's a practice that we use to try and catch things as early as possible. That's the best time to find something. It's always such a gut punch to find out something made it into production. Things happen, it's inevitable, but to limit that is a huge win.
I'm glad that we're talking about security within application development, and I don't want to veer too far off topic and just dive into the Wild West of AI, but you mentioned automation. So I'm just wondering, how have you used AI to help support security, but also where have you also seen maybe gaps in security because of AI?
Yeah, I mean, AI is the new thing.
It's the new frontier.
It's the new frontier. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's using it to some degree. And I've seen ways that AI has been beneficial. There's things from a developer standpoint that are intriguing about it. And as you said, there's gaps in it too, and there's things that we are learning and discovering as we go, and probably things we haven't learned and haven't discovered yet too. Yeah. AI can be an incredibly valuable tool for a developer when used right. For developers who are offloading, like turning their brain off and offloading everything to it, it can potentially introduce security vulnerabilities into your code. So the thing I talk to my team about is, if the team wants to use AI to actually write their code, that's fine, but ultimately they're still responsible for it. So all the same checks are in place. Code review is extremely vital when you're talking about AI-generated code. Automated security checks are extremely vital when you're talking about AI-generated code, because something could have been introduced that you did not intend or you didn't even know was there.
Yeah. So during our conversation, we've kind of covered more so what companies should be doing for their security when using web applications. I want to know personally, as an employee, as a person, when I am using web applications, let's say a Facebook or a LinkedIn, what are things that I may not be aware of that could be leading myself to lack of security, or also my company to a lack of security?
So, the first thing that comes to mind is just to ensure that you have strong passwords and use multi-factor authentication everywhere you can. That's one of the strongest defenses that you can put in place to defend yourself against something like phishing or something like account compromise. So ensuring that is just a regular practice everywhere in all the applications that you use is extremely important. The other thing is to just be aware. Phishing. A lot of times phishing is very obvious, and other times it is not, and it is very easy to fall for. And so ensuring that you are slowing down, reading the email. Does this make sense? Maybe I shouldn't click this link. You've got to be very careful with those types of things.
Now, I don't know if you got the same email, but this one really threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, I received an email from HR, and it was just, I think it was kind of like a Teams away message. So I had missed the message, and our HR said to me, like, hey, we're missing a few documents from your employment screening. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh my gosh, did I not send something in? What paperwork are they missing? I'm in a panic.
Right.
And then I took a moment and I thought, wait a second, she probably would have called me about this. Are those the examples that are really maybe catching people off guard?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're not the only one to
Did
fall
you
for that
fall
email. I did not fall for it. I did not receive the email, but
she knew you wouldn't.
But many people on our team did, and many people fell for it because it was so well done. And bad actors who are putting forth any type of effort, it's very easy to create something that looks authentic. It's very easy to find information and word it in a way that appeals to those senses of urgency that cause us to want to click and give away our password to a bad actor. So it's a very common thing, but it's something that we have to absolutely be aware of.
Greg, I so appreciate our conversation. Before we wrap up here, I just want to ask, is there anything else on your mind or any other tips or advice that you want to give to our listeners today?
I think that, as time has gone on, security has become much more top of mind for lots of people, much more so than it was a few years ago. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that that there's still opportunity to continue to grow and to continue to be aware of the threats that are out there. A lot of the things that feel like basics sometimes are just the most important things to do. And so, for everyone who is, looking for something to do, I would suggest starting with the basics, starting with looking at access control, starting with looking at how you're managing your passwords, ensuring everyone has multi-factor authentication turned on, and ensuring everyone is talking about and learning about security within your company.
Greg, I want to say thank you so much for sitting down with us today. It's always a treat to see you. For those of you who are tuning in, I want to say thank you for listening. Please go ahead and join us on our LinkedIn community. It's Our Cybersecurity Mission. And if you'd like to hear more, we have tons of podcasts on our website, kirkpatrickprice.com/podcast. Anything ranging from, incident response to vulnerability management. And if you have topics that you'd like for us to cover or questions for Greg, I invite you to go ahead and ask us that there. But for today, my name is Allie Krings. Greg, this was a treat, and we'll see you guys later. When you work with a Kirkpatrick Price cybersecurity auditor, you work with someone who's been in your shoes. Let's see what the next expert is ready to share to support you in your cybersecurity mission.
Yeah, I'm Gene Fry, and I've been an information security auditor and also privacy auditor for Kirkpatrick Price for about a little over 5 years now. Prior to that, I spent about 20 years in the healthcare space, dealing with information technology as well as HIPAA privacy. Was a compliance officer for about 5 years with the company that I was working with. Have been in the information technology space and computer space really since 1980, so about 43 years or so in the space. As far as how I got interested in it was, as going through high school and stuff, learning a little bit about computers when they first started coming out. And we had a local college that was in the area that was offering computer maintenance certifications. And I went to a 2-year program and got my certification basically in computer maintenance, and was immediately kind of hired to go to work in Texas, and worked at the Houston Space Center and NASA for a few years before moving into more of like an information security type job at that point. Have been in the space for many, many years. Got real interested in privacy probably about 5 years ago when coming out of the healthcare space, and was looking at trying to do more in the privacy space because the European Union was starting to come out with GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations, and I just thought that there was probably going to be some overlap coming into the U.S. markets and stuff. So, and at the time when I was starting to work for Kirkpatrick Price, they were in the process of starting to build a privacy practice.
Today's episode highlights the need for secure application development to achieve our challenging compliance goals. Integrating security in development in your build pipeline will strengthen your applications from attack. Are you ready to join a community of 10,000 people who are working together to elevate the standards for cybersecurity and compliance? It's free to sign up at kirkpatrickprice.com/podcast or check the show notes and achieve greater levels of assurance today. Thanks for joining us on our cybersecurity mission.